I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE, symbol CRL, and the pink symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sheryl McCumsey, founder of Pesticide Free Alberta. And Happy New Year and welcome back to the show.
Happy New Year, Jim.
Sheryl, one of the questions a lot of people ask is, how can I tell if something I buy at the store is organic? Because people throw the word natural around, and I think people get confused between so-called natural and organic.
Yes, natural is a marketing word, and an organic association in the U.S. made fun of that, actually. It was a very comical video about how natural means nothing. Arsenic is natural. But organic does have certain perimeters, and there is a certification process. And so if you do not see an organic label on a product, you don't know that it's organic. So you can go into an organic store and you'll see lots of products that are not organic. Just because they're in an organic store does not mean they're organic. Of course, that being said, there are farmers out there who do use organic practices that don't get certification because there's a cost involved, and some of them are fairly small and don't necessarily do that. But at the same time, you want to ask that farmer exactly what they do use, like what kind of products they use, what they do instead to avoid using pesticides, how they address concerns in their soil, et cetera, because it's really important to ask those questions. So again, critical thinking skills is really important and comes into play. But the label, if it's not there, if it doesn't say Canada organic or U.S. organic, you don't know that it is.
Is there, besides asking farmers questions, what about the store owner or the clerk? Would they know?
Sometimes it depends on the store, really. Like some people are well informed in certain stores. I know in Edmonton here, some employees are well informed. There was one store in particular in Edmonton that I actually reported to an inspector because they were misinforming their customers, and I tried to contact the owner several times and have a discussion, and they never answered me. So I finally reported them, and then went back to the store and still found that there were signs stating that something was organic when it was not. So I don't think I would ask the workers, not because you don't appreciate and respect them, but because the owner is more liable for giving you information that's incorrect. And probably emailing is the best way, because then you have something in writing that says whatever they're going to tell you, and they have to be more accountable in that case. So that's what I've done. I've emailed people and asked them questions, and if they're very evasive and don't want to ask the question, you have to wonder why.
Does the cost tell you anything? Oh, if it's pricey, it must be organic?
No, that's not the case. I've been in the store lots of times and kind of had fun with that because I was in Safeway recently, and the organic kiwis were cheaper than the conventional kiwis. So I made a little announcement in the store. And I mean, I've seen a number of times where organic can be cheaper. Of course, most of the time there is going to be a higher cost because, again, as I said, there's a certification process, and that does cost a farmer extra money to do. It seems backwards. In my opinion, it should be the other way around. And there's also a number of subsidies that organic farmers have more difficulty accessing because they don't use pesticides. So the whole system is more geared to conventional. So you will see most of the time that organic is more. But again, I found a lot of times, and I spend less money on food now than I used to. It's a matter of paying attention. So for bulk items, for example, in an organic store here in Edmonton called Earth's General, and I go there, they have organic spices in bulk, and those spices are cheaper than anything you're going to buy at Safeway and a conventional costs for everything else. So it's a matter of really paying attention.
Is it a myth or propaganda that without extra chemicals and pesticides and so on, we wouldn't be able to grow enough food for everybody?
Well, there are organizations like the Rodale Institute that have done long-term studies, 30-year long-term studies to illustrate that's not true. You have to look more long-term. If you're looking short-term, you might get a higher yield for a few years, and then you might start to see a decline because pesticides and synthetic fertilizers do some damage to the environment, to the soil. And so over a period of time, you're going to find less resilience in that system. Organic systems are just more resilient in that they look at growing food from a different angle, I guess you could say. Not all organic farmers do that, but in general, that's the basis of organic farming is to have healthy soil. And I know one organic farmer that says, I don't grow food, I grow healthy soil. Completely different way of thinking about things.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things they can do to keep the soil healthy and not have to use all these artificial and sometimes dangerous chemicals?
Well, of course, on a mixed farm, manure comes to mind. But if you don't have a mixed farm, there are other things that you can put into the soil to increase its fertility. Microbes are a big deal. If you're putting things in the soil that are not benefiting those microbes and feeding those microbes, like a compost tea, for example, is another one that a scientist in the U.S., Elaine Ingham, talks about using compost teas, and she's shown how farmers have moved away from using chemicals and how that's really improved their yield and the root systems and the increase of growth on those areas where they've used these compost teas. So those are just two ideas, but there are many. There's other farmers who use biodegraded materials. And I think New York, if I remember right, has actually created a system so that all of their waste is being composted and delivered to farmers, if I remember right. I think it's New York City. So there can be a system created where the rural and urban areas are kind of cooperating in this. There's so many ideas out there.
Now, where I live in the lower mainland of BC, each municipality has its own rules and regulations for recycling. Some have everything sorted out into really minute different kinds of things. Others just say throw it in a big bin and we'll look after it later. Does that make it very confusing for consumers?
Well, I can understand the need for having different systems because depending on the size of your municipality and the staff that you have, sorting things out might be more difficult for a smaller area. So I can understand different places having different systems. It can be confusing for people, but when you start making them accountable for their own garbage, and places are doing that, especially on islands where, you can't just keep accumulating waste. And really, we live on an island if you think of the planet that way. If you make people accountable for their own garbage, then they start taking more responsibility and finding out what they need to do. You have to make that information readily accessible to people so they know what to do. Like we have a compost bin in our backyard, but we're not required to do that here in Edmonton. And we make use of that. We put that in our garden, and this is like free fertilizer. So to us, it's actually a benefit, but a lot of people would need to rethink how they do things, which is just a matter of changing your habits, really.
We'll have more with Sheryl McCumsey right after the break.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sheryl McCumsey. Sheryl, how can you tell if your local municipality is pesticide free or is trying to keep it down, or if it's just spraying chemicals willy-nilly and doesn't really care what people think or feel?
Well, most municipalities have some information on their website, but it's pretty limited information. And it'll only tell you usually some general information about that they maybe follow what they call integrated pest management. But this is really kind of a vague description of what a municipality does. It doesn't tell you exactly how they decide what and when to spray. Some municipalities will have more information available to the public where they actually give you, they might have a perimeter where so many weeds per square meter and then they spray, or they spray only noxious weeds, or so on. Some municipalities are really straightforward and say, well, we don't spray weeds, period. We address them another way. But the only way you're really going to know for sure is to ask questions. So emailing, depending on how big your municipality is, might be that department that's responsible for weeds and pests, for example, and asking very detailed questions. Exactly what pesticides does the city or the municipality use? In the city of Edmonton, I've had to FOIP the city clerk to get that information. So I've FOIPed the city clerk and asked, what pesticides does the city of Edmonton use? Can I have a list? And basically I got 48 pesticides on that list. Well, most people just think of herbicide. We spray for insects, we spray for disease, etc. And so you'll find that list often is a lot longer than you might think. And a concerning one because, for example, with neonics, which are an insecticide that's used in most municipalities still, is considered to be 5,000 to 10,000 times more toxic than DDT. And groups have said that, according to the Attorney General of Canada, some of them are unlawfully on the market. They never had the required science submitted. So here we have using a pesticide that's not really properly assessed in the first place, one that's highly toxic, and we aren't really notified where and when pesticides are sprayed. So another question would be to ask, does your municipality make mandatory signage for all pesticides used or only for herbicides? Because if they are only posting one sign in one big park, you could be walking right through that entire park before you even know if a pesticide's been sprayed. And if it was sprayed 2 days ago and the signs are removed, that doesn't mean that pesticide's not still there. There is a study done in the University of Calgary that showed herbicides that were sprayed in the fall were found in the air the following April, in the air. So these pesticides persist, and without asking very detailed questions of your municipality, you really don't know exactly what's going on.
Is there any legal requirement they have to adequately post everything?
Well, from province to province and municipality to municipality, it's different. So here in Alberta, we wanted to see mandatory signage as something that we could start with because people don't even know an area has been sprayed necessarily. A municipality might say they put signs up, but if they aren't, if the employee hasn't done it, who are they accountable to and who's going to follow that up? There really isn't a very good system to address to make sure that people are adequately informed. Here in Alberta, the only requirement is that a municipality informed that they are spraying pesticides. So City of Edmonton puts an ad in the paper, in the Edmonton Journal, for example, that says we're spraying pesticides from April to October, and that's about all they say. It doesn't really tell you anything. It just tells you that they are spraying pesticides. It doesn't tell you where, when, or what, or even why, or even if it's needed. So the more I've been looking into this, the more I see that integrated pest management is very questionable because it doesn't give clear information about how the user determines when and where and how they spray a pesticide.
We'll have more with Sheryl McCumsey right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sheryl McCumsey. Sheryl, do too many municipalities and governments in general rely on industry to tell them what's safe, what's reliable, and what should be used for what?
Oh, I would say definitely. I mean, we call them stakeholders. And in a lot of industries, we call industry stakeholders, and they're involved in making determinations a lot of the time, and they say they're using science to make these determinations. Well, I question that because we don't have anywhere near enough of another side to this about whether we even need pesticides, for example. I know in Ontario that public health was involved in making decisions about policy for the entire province. In Quebec, they're much more advanced as well. But here in Alberta, we have not even seen that. And I know in BC, another concern is that when we bring the PMRA into the picture, they are not a health organization. They are an organization that registers and regulates pesticides. So people have kind of confused what that means and haven't really had the opportunity, I guess, if you're a politician, for example, and you're voting on a policy, do you have the time to dig into the science or even understand the science about the harm of these toxins and how they are not properly assessed when they go on the market in the first place? So, for example, if I'm a parent and I have a child, for example, that I want to make sure that child has good health, and I'm talking to my doctor perhaps, do I want to have the pharmaceutical company sitting in the same room making decisions about whether my child should be on a drug or not? Absolutely not. So, but here we do. We sort of accept it is a regular thing, and it happens often, and industry has very deep pockets. They have a lot of money. They can make their staff available, paid staff. The opposition to that is what? What do we have in place? Well, we really don't have something in place to protect human health, and in most places all across Canada, it is a big concern, and a lot of groups are struggling to have the time and the energy to share another side about how we can do things.
Is there any effort by government to make sure they're being told the truth by pharmaceutical and chemical companies?
Well, again, I think there's a lack of knowledge. It's taken me many years of research to see some of the failings in the system, to see, for example, that, it's a conflict of interest, surely, that an industry provides the science to register a product. In the case of a pharmaceutical company, for example, they might do 6 studies and submit 2. They're not going to submit the 4 studies that maybe show an issue, and they don't have to have a product that is remarkably useful. It only has to be marginally so. So, I've seen a lot of drugs over the years come off the market after they've shown adverse harm. So we have problems with the pharmaceutical industry in the same way that we have problems with the pesticide industry, and that another huge one, again, is that products are not tested. So how comfortable would you be in taking a drug every day that hasn't had the required science submitted in the first place? And how comfortable would you be in taking a drug that wasn't fully tested, that only a part of that drug was tested? And with pesticides, that's generally the issue. We don't assess Roundup, we assess glyphosate. And those additives have a huge impact on the toxicity of the product. So when we talk about how they are assessed in the first place, it's very questionable. And then when we look at how much we're using and how they persist in the environment, well, the studies that we find after these products go on the market show that these pesticides persist a lot longer than what we're given to believe. We're given to believe that, you spray herbicide in your yard and after it's dry, it's not there anymore. Well, it is still there. It is absolutely still there. And every day that you go out into your yard, you're exposed to that, little bit by little bit. And that adds up. When you look at the science that comes down the road, you see that the increase of risk to cancer is certainly significant with those people who have higher exposures.
Well, I watched a documentary on what's in breast milk, and it seems that you're giving your kids a pretty high dose of fire retardant. Yeah. And everybody's wondering, well, how the hell did that get into my breast milk? I don't recall, drinking or eating fire retardant, but apparently it's everywhere and in everything.
Yes, and it's even questionable why we even put it in everything. There are people who are trying to work on that issue as well, saying we don't need fire retardants, and they're harmful. How did they get in there in the first place? And how were they allowed? And so the whole system that we have for assessing products and their safety is a broken system if we want to maintain, healthy people and a healthy environment. And this stuff is building in the environment. We're seeing so many health impacts. We're seeing children that are having difficulties in school. We see decline in fertility. We see increases of cancer, increases of gut disease, increases of many other brain diseases. And when you look at the science, it all shows a link back to exposure of certain toxins. In France, it's believed that the relationship between pesticides is clear, that if a person develops Parkinson's disease, they are compensated. I mean, that's how they believe that the link is that clear. Here in Canada, it seems we are, maybe a decade or two behind how Europeans look at these issues. And I wonder why that is. I could just wonder why that is. But clearly, if you have more toxins in your household and in your food system, it's going to have a result. We don't even know. We don't mix these things up in the lab and test them on animals to see what those combinations of toxins do. But any chemist knows that if you mixed this and that and the other thing together, you're going to get a different reaction than if you just have one inert product by itself.
Well, perhaps the European attitude towards food can tell you they're more concerned about quality than they are with quantity.
Yes, and to be honest, I have to agree with that myself. Like if I buy a little bag of organic fair trade truffles, wow, I like that a whole lot better than a huge big black box of Black Magic. And I used to like Black Magic, but quantity over quality. I think quality is much more enjoyable. There's in some ways less waste if you're eating higher quality food. Do you need supplements if you're eating good food? You might not need supplements anymore. How much do people spend on supplements, and how useful are those supplements? There's been some studies on that as well, showing that some of these supplements are not that useful. So, but if your food has higher nutrition I prefer eating organic for a number of reasons. I find the food tastes better most of the time.
I guess North Americans believe pills are better than the real deal. They're better than the real thing.
Well, you mean like taking supplements?
Yes. Well, it seems to me in North America, we want a pill for everything. The pills are the answer for everything.
Yeah, I think we've been kind of programmed to think like that. I mean, if you turn on the TV, there's a pill for everything. And it's a quick fix. And, human beings like quick fixes. It's kind of what we like, but they aren't really fixing either. When you look at, everybody's talking about the gut flora today, how important the gut flora is for every organ in the body, how the gut flora impacts the brain. So we look at depression too, is probably linked to gut flora. A really interesting study I came across show that giving magnesium, which a lot of Canadians are deficient in, by the way, magnesium. By giving magnesium, they saw that there was a better outcome, a quicker outcome with less side effects than giving an antidepressant. Well, why wouldn't you do that then? I mean, some of the antidepressants actually deplete the body of magnesium, which could probably make your depression worse. This is like a supplement, for example, that will be an issue in that if you're eating conventional food, guess what glyphosate does? Glyphosate chelates and holds on to magnesium. So it makes it unavailable to the plant. And if you're consuming that in your diet, it's probably going to impact your absorption of it as well. So if you're eating conventional food that's sprayed with glyphosate, and you're probably going to get at least some of that if you're eating conventional food, maybe a lot, well, then maybe the magnesium is what you need short term. But if you're taking that long term, that means you're missing it in your food. And why are you missing it in your food?
Sheryl, where can people get more information about all these things that you've dug up and talked about today?
Like I've said before, we do have a website, but that website is going to come down in a couple of months, and we're going to have to create a new one. We want to create one for Canada rather than just for Alberta. And I'm moving to BC, actually, and have made contact with some people who are concerned about these issues in BC. But there's a number of people all across Canada who are concerned. We are going to create a Canadian group, Pesticide Free Canada, and we do have an email. So on our Facebook page, you can message us on our Facebook page, Pesticide Free Canada. And we don't have a lot of people on there yet, but Pesticide Free Alberta and Pesticide Free Edmonton on Facebook are probably the best way to catch us in our transition to moving out there. There's people still here in Edmonton who will be continuing on the work here, but we'll be starting up a group in BC for Canada, because it seems like a lot of people across Canada are struggling with these issues in the same way that we have been.
And of course, politicians, until you put it right in their face, don't seem to care about it much, do they?
I think they are affected, as everyone is, by what they learn. What's in the media, what's been reported, what their ability is as far as understanding science, and their own health. I mean, a lot of people learn this the hard way. They get sick. I've met a lot of people in the organic stores who are shopping who tell me they have family who suffered cancer, or they've suffered cancer, and they came to realize that what they eat has a huge impact on their health. So sometimes people come to this after they've had health issues. Some people seem to already kind of understand that pesticides are poisons, and so we should understand them to be such. Instead of calling them safe, they have a risk, and they need to be considered that way.
Sheryl, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Jim.
My guest has been Sheryl McCumsey, founder of Pesticide Free Alberta. If you have any questions for Sheryl or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.